Are you struggling with your facade design? Did you spend the last 6 months perfecting your plan to only get something that looks like this from your architect? Well, you're not alone. I get at least 20 pictures like this per month, and I always get these pictures when the client is about to go to the city, and that's when the truth really hits them. They're like, oh, if I submit this to the city, there's no way back. You could not change anything in your facade. At least I think in the US for sure. I think Canada, Australia, Singapore, because this project I'm about to share with you is in Singapore. I believe in every jurisdiction I worked, you cannot change anything after you submit to the city. So for some context, I get an email from this client and he sends me this picture. He's like, hey, I'm building something in Singapore and I've been watching your videos and I think you're the only person who can fix it. And I'm always like, when I get these messages, I know it's an emergency. I know the design is really bad, and I know that I am gonna be against almost like Mission Impossible, but I have to deliver because I am almost like the last resort for these people. So I was at the gym and I was like literally running the treadmill. This is similar to the Florida project I shared a few months ago. I was running and I see, I can open my email and I see this picture and I literally had to slow down because like the first glance, I'm like, what is this? Is he building a school? Is he building a hotel? What? This doesn't look like a house to me. So I finish my workout and I come back upstairs and I read more into it and then I see the plans. And it is actually a single family home. It's for one family. Now it's a massive house, but when you really look at the plan, it's very thin and narrow because if you watched my climate video, is that in Singapore, not all the time, but this house actually is very sustainably driven and it's designed in a way that it's very thin because all the air that's coming in, and again, Singapore is very hot and humid, all that air that's coming in is bringing in humidity with it, and humidity is just like airs that has little pockets of water. That water is just gonna get left out inside the house. So if you have a very narrow house, then the air is getting circulated quickly, comes in, comes out, comes in, comes out, so it doesn't get stuck in the middle of the house. Now I like that about this house. Now but how am I gonna fix this? This is like a massive gigantic blob of mass. Now the first thing I have to look at and diagnose this is that there are a few things here that are not working and that can be applied to almost all the facades that I get that are not so well designed. One is lack of materiality, because in this example we only have one material, which is travertine, and travertine is such a pretty material and it's very expensive, but if you just put travertine all throughout the facade, then it's gonna lose its importance. Travertine, you can use it as an accent, or you can use it as a secondary, but I don't think you should just like clad your whole facade with travertine. Number two, this facade suffers from something that one of my teachers used to call the pancake effect. Whatever you have on the first floor, you have on the second floor, you have on the third floor, and you just go and you just like add in the same thing over and over again. So there is no variation, there is no variety. The eye is just like looking at this mass and it doesn't have any hierarchy. Like my eye is trying to grab onto something and there's nothing to grab on. That's the thing. Like it needs some variety in terms of either heights or depth or something. It's super flat. Of course, I always tell you, if you have a flat facade, you don't really have a facade. And that's just a few things that I can think of right now. There is a lot more to that. Like I said, you have to avoid the pancake stacking. There's one giant mass. There's no proportions. There's no hierarchy. It's flat with no contrast. And there's no balance between what's horizontal and what's vertical. The house is just like this stretched out on the horizontal level. But there's no nothing that's contrasting that. So everything that's going against design principles is in this house. For this house, because it was so big and the facade was so large, I literally had to get out everything that's in my toolkit to fix the facade. And I was still running out of ideas because it was just so massive. Now let's start with hierarchy. I think that's the first thing that's really hurting the facade the most. The reason, by the way, I'm adding this red thing here at the top is because later on he sent me an updated plan and they added a one story, and I was very reluctant about adding the extra story, and he told me like, do you think it's gonna make the house even more massive? And I said, of course it will, but what they did is that they ended up just cutting it short right here, so this was left out as a roof garden. Okay, so now let me show you what I did with this facade. So this is the before and this is the after. So you can see from the get-go is that I have a lot going on, and it's for a reason. Like, I am not somebody that just have a lot going on for the clutter. I don't like visual clutter, but for such a big large mass, you have to have variety and different things happening at the same time. So when you look at this, there are a few things that can be your focal point. There is more than two, which is fine because again, the facade is so large, but at least you're not just like, what am I looking at? So you can either be looking at the double height space, you can be looking at the slats, you can be looking at the verticality of the tree here, you can look at the rooftop here. There are plenty to choose from. Now, the second thing is that you have to, like I said, you have to add some hierarchy. So there is not all the same weight and you have different things. The next thing is you have to break the mass. The way I broke this mass is by going and looking at the plan. So for example, if I go to look at the plan, I believe I have a double height volume here. So this right here is the perfect opportunity for me to have a double height space. And that's what I think they were trying to do here. You can see how it's done here, but then they broke it with this line. That just defeats the purpose. And this is something similar to, it just hit me. This is something similar to what I had in one of my Australia projects, where she had this double height space of a stair and then the architect just broke it with a strip, and that drove me crazy. And I just realized that they are making the same mistake here in Singapore. So why do you want to break that? Just have all this glass exposed and then frame it with a wooden box if you want to frame, but frame it as a whole mass. Don't frame the top and then the bottom. Frame it as top and bottom as one element. And same thing here. I think this was some double height space here, but again, I think they left it as a blank because they were still developing the facade or whatnot. But I was like, okay, if I have a double height space here, then I'm gonna have a double height space here. So it's like somewhat of a symmetry, but not quite. But at least there are two things that are tying the building together, because this building was broken with a passageway. What is it called? A bridge. I can't believe I forgot the word bridge. They're connected by a bridge. So I just wanted to bring some similarity between the left wing and the right wing. And then on top of that, there was just bathrooms everywhere. And when I get a blank wall with bathrooms, I just don't know what to do with it. So my only option really is to have wood slats, and that's the price that you're gonna have to pay if you're not designing your facade along with your plans. So you're gonna be like, okay, this is the perfect location for my bathroom because it's right across the bedroom and this and that. But then when you look at the plan, you're literally putting a bathroom in front of the main facade. And mind you, this street right here was like a large major road in Singapore, so everybody is gonna pass through this house. So, and you're just gonna put a blank wall there? I don't know anybody who likes to put a blank wall. I've worked with countless clients, and every time there's a blank wall, I am struggling, they're struggling what to put there, because it's just, there's not much to do there. Anyhow, so that's what I was talking about, breaking the masses and then have a little bit of symmetry if you can. Now, next thing is you're going to try to have some contrasting masses when push and pull. So contrasting masses is, for example, there is this one here that I have is a cube, and then there is this one here that's a rectangular, and same thing here. You can see I have a cube and then I have a rectangular. So again, the eye is just having a little bit of variety because the facade is so long, and then things are going to start getting very repetitive quickly. So if you're having a variety of masses, that can really help the eye get grounded a little bit. Next thing is having some depth in your walls. Now, like I said earlier, this facade was super flat. Like this wall, let's just take for example this wall, this wall, this wall, this wall, this wall is all one plane. And if you can have balconies, even better, but usually balconies are added in the project way earlier, and it's very hard to just like start adding balconies everywhere. So what you can do is you can start playing a little bit with the wall itself. As you can see here, I'm just like making a frame out of these walls, and it's just adding a little bit of stucco that sticks out to add a depth and it's framing those windows instead of just having a plain window. I'll try to share a picture of the before when I was working and like the things that I was struggling with, and I'm like, oh my god, because I had to redraw this from scratch, because that's how I design. When I get a project like this, I cannot just like pinpoint, okay, fix this, fix that. I have to like get down and dirty with the design, and I start like, I let my hands just like push and pull things, and I was like, this is way too flat for me. And I think this is one of the biggest facades I've worked on. Yes, it's one of the biggest facades I worked on, if not the biggest. So that's what we can do with the push and pull when it's too late to add a balcony, but you still want some of that depth. Next, we're going to talk about materiality. I think I touched briefly on this earlier, is that when you have just one material, then you're really hurting the facade because it starts to read flat. No matter how much push and pull you're going to have, no matter how much differences in massing that you're going to have, it's still going to feel flat. So like here, I just did stucco, and I did the aluminum slats, and then I did the glass, and of course I had to introduce some greenery because the facade was looking a little bit lifeless. And especially in Singapore, it's such a tropical, humid country, then why not use some of the greenery? It's gonna rain anyways, those plants are probably not gonna be very high maintenance, so adding some greenery is gonna give some life into the project. And also you can start using greenery when you have double height spaces. Like for example here, I just added a tree here to emphasize that double height space. So I'm hitting two birds with one stone. I always confuse it, two stone with one bird. Two birds with one stone. Yes. Two birds with one stone. And then of course I always do this cutout, because again, these massive slabs are just gonna swallow your facade, and that's exactly what was happening here. This was a massive slab. Actually, if they just had a cutout here, that would have worked slightly better. But like I just said, on the front facade, you can emphasize some of those double height spaces with the greenery, and it's the same thing that I did on the other side of the facade. So here you have this blank wall, and I believe there was an elevator there. There was something that I could not put a window or anything, so I have to leave it there. Ideally, you shouldn't be putting an elevator on a wall that's going to be on the exterior wall, but it is what it is. So you just try to put as many as tall trees that you can, and it's just gonna try to kind of distract, but at the same time it's gonna make the facade look like it's elongated. Another thing here is, again, do the stairs as a one large cage, and then one of those framing items that I said earlier. And then here there's another one where I broke the double height space, and then there's the roof garden here. And you know, try to, when you have a frame like this side here, try to have the same windows that you have on top as you have on the bottom. So when you have things that are similar, try to frame them and tie them together, and they're the same group in item or the same frame. That way the eye is not looking at a window like that, and then here the window is like vertical or something. It's gonna confuse the eye, because the eye is like, oh, I thought I'm looking at the same thing top and bottom, because you framed them together, but now you're framing things that are not similar. So just minimize that clutter, minimize that visual confusion if you can. That's pretty much what I wanted to talk about in this video. There was a lot that I did in this facade, but I just wanted to kind of keep it at the big items and hit the big stuff. I think I didn't really walk you through the plan. I'm just gonna walk you through the plan quickly. So basically the garage, you come in here, you park your garage, you have stairs that go to the second floor, or you can come in here and you can go inside the living room, and then this is where that double height space. Of course they had a solid wall here, I just opened it up, make it glass, and you come in, there's a dining, there's a powder room, there's a kitchen, and then the family lounge, and then a guest bedroom, and then here they had a courtyard on the outside, and I believe they had a dining outdoor kitchen right here, and then they had a sauna slash gym slash just a wellness area. And then you go, and then of course there's the pool that goes at an angle. I really like the angled pool. And then you go upstairs, and then this is the stairs, there's the bridge. This is double heights that looks down at the living room, and then just more bedrooms, master bedroom. And then here they have the study and a gym. And then you go even to the third floor, then there's, again, you land here, and then more bedrooms, and then the bridge, and then there's another bedroom. And then they added an extra one that came in much later, which is just one bedroom, actually two bedrooms, and then the rooftop. So that's pretty much the house. When you look at it, it does look massive, and it is massive, but when you look at the plan, it's not that big. But it was quite a challenge to design, and I was just very glad that the client at the end, he said, oh my god, finally my house doesn't look like a jail, because I was actually kind enough to not call it a jail. I kind of call it like a school or something, but when he said a jail, I'm like, oh my god, yeah, it actually does. I think it has something to do with that darkness of the travertine, but that was not my first thought. His words, not mine. Anyhow, so if you found this video helpful, then leave me a like, comment, share, and as usual, I'm going to try to leave a PDF summary of the design principles that I used and the tips that I've shared with you. And as usual, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!